is Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Hope everybody had a good weekend. Long weekend. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Derek Brandeo, David Sisboom-Boss, Sammy McKee. We've got summer hours.
Summer hours, pal. There's worse things than this.
2 to 3 from here on in. I don't know where to start. First of all, I'm going to sound like I have a lisp.
Yeah, there is actually so much to get to. I'm stressed out already about the clock.
Don't. I just want to explain that if I sound a little different, I've got an old hockey injury. I've had my bottom teeth capped for the last 34 years.
Yeah.
And they've been fantastic until I bit into something and broke and fractured my tooth underneath the cap.
Oh, no.
And now they got to go dig it out and find it and get rid of it. And I'm in for, like, I will be in a dentist chair for the next year, I think.
Are you
But
going?
my buddy Stan promised me he'll fix it.
When you going to get it fixed?
5:15
Oh,
today.
you're going today.
Oh, yeah. Well,
you coming in tomorrow?
I'm going to start. I don't know. I don't know where I am. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how fat my lip's going to be.
Yeah, okay.
But we'll play it one dentist visit at a time.
Was it your mom's baklava? What'd you bite into?
Ah, man, a rib, but I might have bit something a little earlier that started the process.
A bowl of Werther's, just eating them like cereal.
I don't know, but we're gonna get through it.
We are.
We've got 1 hour to dissect where this Toronto Maple Leafs storyline is at this present moment. You know, I started Friday's show, and I believe I used the term, if you've been sleeping under a rock in the last few hours.
See where you're going.
If you've been sleeping under a rock and you haven't heard, Kyle Dubas is no longer the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
You weren't literally sleeping under a rock on Friday, but you were close.
As close as you can.
You were really close to sleeping under a rock.
You know what's funny is, so we were away camping, my wife and I, Leafs are out. It's a week later. They've done their presser. Seems like Dubas coming back. Safe time to go. So we turned my phone off. Our moms were in town to watch the kids. I turned my phone right off. So when I powered it back on Saturday morning to drive home, I was like, oh, come on. And then I've been consuming everything possible since.
So you were literally the last guy to know in Toronto.
Yeah, quite possibly. And I've just picked my jaw up off the floor.
You could be in broadcasting for the next 70 years, and you won't ever get a day like that.
Gifted a GM of the team I've been covering for like a decade, fired in really unbelievable fashion, and I was toasting marshmallows.
Like, not that the Leaf misery is something that we can gloat about, right? But
there's just a lot to
from a broadcasting perspective, that was the greatest theater you could ever find for live content or live
Thanks, pal.
radio, podcast. I don't know. Sammy.
I will say this. At least I got the Dubas presser, which also was full of great drama. Okay. So I got the Dubas side of it.
Where would Monday to Friday rank for you, Sammy?
It's number one, I think. I had some night shows where I did after the Jays made all those trades in 2015 where they got Tulowitzki and they got all those guys, and that was like that, and they got David Price. I remember doing an evening show producing with Roger Lajoie, taking calls and all that kind of stuff. I worked the Toronto Raptors championship broadcast when they won, so that's obviously up there. But I've never, like, the second Shanny sat down to start that press conference, I looked into there at Gordon and Kyper with just this look on my face, because the way he walked out there, the way he sat down, the tone he started with, it was pretty clear pretty quickly.
I've watched it a couple times now.
It was going to be something different than we're used to with the Leafs.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it was pretty clear.
Okay, we are on the clock for an hour show now from here on in. So I say, JB, you're going to be our Grapes in his heyday, where something can break on a Monday or Tuesday, but we just cannot put it to bed until we heard from Grapes on a Saturday night. You are that guy right now. We need to hear from you for the first time, and someone that has worked with Kyle Dubas under the Marlies. I mean, where do you want to start on this story?
I will start with disappointment at how weak the whole thing is. It is weak in every aspect to me, Kip. Like, Dubas looks weak. Shanahan looks weak. The whole thing to me, pathetic's a bit much, but not one person to me dug in and made a decision. Like, there were hard decisions to be made. Shanahan and MLSE could have said, we don't want Kyle Dubas. We've decided the success wasn't there. It's not enough. He's gone. They could have said, we want him. He's our guy. Got to have him. You know, we've left ourselves with no choice at this point. Got to have him. They didn't decide either way. Dubas could have said, I want to be here. This is my everything. And he didn't. He could say, I want to go. This isn't it for me. And he didn't. And everyone comes off looking wishy-washy and emotional. And where you're looking for professionals and leaders, everyone came out looking worse.
Yeah, no one can argue with that.
I think that's truly bang on.
Well, that's good, because I've had a lot of time to think about this. But I am truly like, I can't. I know that my understanding is you rightfully, by the way, went pretty good at Dubas and the decisions he made on Friday.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, for me, the emotions caught up to me. And, you know, just from someone that's been around the game for so long, and listen, he had the dream job. Like, there was just a part of me that could check being a broadcaster aside and just saying, Kyle, like, you know, not that I would physically wring your neck, but I would in any other way possible.
Right.
That to say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay. If in fact, and a lot's starting to surface now, because we know Kyle had a lot of friends in the media, and there's pro Kyle Dubas here, and then there's not.
Yeah.
But the sense is a lot of people that are pro Kyle are spinning this theory that he wanted more control. He wanted more autonomy. He was frustrated with how slow the process was to get his message across, like all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just to go back to why I would say to him, what are you doing? Is that, like, you're not 55, 60, and, you know, you're looking at, you know, the back end of your career. You've got your whole career ahead of you. So it's not perfect. So at times you are told no.
Yeah.
We answer to bosses here.
Yeah.
Right? There's, you know,
50.
Ryan, there's Dan, there's, you know, go up the food chain,
Yeah.
Greg Sansoni. Those guys come and tell you yes or no on something. Like, then that's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's called, you know, a pecking order. That's called the chain of command.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want to phrase it, but that's the way it works.
Yeah.
And Kyle, if you were tired about not having more leeway, then use your right to exercise the last year of your deal and move on.
Yes.
But it didn't need to get this ugly.
And to me, it was almost, you know, like, you know, it's not exactly how I want it, but maybe it would be if you paid me more, or if I had this, you know, as you mentioned, more autonomy or whatever it may be. And then it goes to the other side where, you know, Shanahan had left himself in a position with, it had to be Kyle or the franchise to stand here holding the bag with no GM and huge decisions to make in 40 days. And he got emotional. And he got his feelings hurt by, you know, Kyle wanting to go about things differently or wanting more money or whatever. But they left themselves in a position where you can't afford to get emotional and let the guy go, because now you're the one who's the president of the team, and you got nothing.
I think
You're doing interviews.
I think that's where I feel differently today than I did on Friday when it happened, would just be how I'm looking at Shanahan. And I thought that, like, the early narrative was he was getting kind of a pass in terms of this. But I do think that he plays a pretty big part in this as well, in terms of, like you said off the top there, Bourne, it not looking good on either side.
I think ultimately, you know, he he is the guy at the top of this thing where you say, okay, you know, that's where you needed your leadership to come from. And I think a lot of people understand why he was frustrated at Dubas and why. I could see, by the way it played out, making me mad as well. But that's when you're the guy at the top, and it can't show. You know, you have to just dig in and keep that behind closed doors.
I did a hit on breakfast television today with Sid, and I to your point, I just said, listen, at the end of the day, Kyle's gone. You're interviewing, but this is on Brendan Shanahan's watch. The buck is supposed to stop with him.
Yeah.
This was left open and vulnerable for a potential blow up. And to your point, it was on his watch. So he has to be held accountable to say that this is what presidents are supposed to avoid.
Yes, that's exactly how I feel. And I think at the start of last year, the board probably said, we don't want to sign him, and maybe Brendan did. But that at that point, you have to say, we either have to sign him or not keep him.
Listen, I do hold Brendan accountable because he is the president, but this was started by Kyle.
Well, it was started when he didn't get a contract extension.
No, it was started Monday.
No.
Yes. Listen, anything that started without a contract is just business. It's just business.
It is business, but the business people left themselves holding the bag.
Which is fine. And if you're Kyle and you want to say, okay, I'm not happy. And to your point, you know, we talked about this all year.
Yeah.
Is he stubborn enough to say, you know what, I'll go somewhere else? But that's not the way it played out, JB. It played out much differently because of the way Kyle acted on Monday. Like at the end of the day, however Brendan Shanahan as president came to the conclusion, I want to offer you a 5-year deal, and I'm going to pay you $4+ million, and I've got $22 million, $25 million on the table. Here it is. However he arrived to that, it's his right as president to give it to you in September. It's his right to give it to you in January. It's his right to give it to you a week after the season's over. That's his prerogative. He is the president. He is in control. If you choose to not accept it, then just do it quietly and then go on your way and say, we could not come to terms. If the news came out that Brendan Shanahan wanted him back, but Kyle said, we couldn't come to terms and that's why I left, no one would have said boo. It would have been, oh, Brendan blew it, or no, the best thing that Brendan did was not give him his contract because he's never been ever a guy that threatened to take the team to a Stanley Cup final or win the Stanley Cup, and he doesn't deserve it. And you would have had that 50-50, but it wouldn't have been ugly like this. When Kyle decided to play games and overplay his hand is when this thing got ugly.
It's when it got ugly, Kip. But if it's his prerogative to offer him that money when he offered him the money. But when you drag the year out and you say, we don't know if we want you. We don't know. We'll just see how the year goes and then we'll make it's my prerogative. I'll give it to you when I want. Yeah. They get to March and they say, I think, we think we're ready. We think we're probably ready to do this. And then you're like, okay, we're going to do it. We've got Kyle. And then you don't get a deal done. And all of a sudden it's May. Your prerogative has left you. So if that guy does what you're talking about, gets emotional, makes it whatever, then all of a sudden the only option you've left yourself is gone. So you've left yourself no avenues or no plan because you've decided to kick it down the road. If you're going to kick it down the road, you better have plans.
Yeah.
If your one plan doesn't work out because you're the president.
That's what happens now. Now the focus is off Kyle, and now it's all on Brendan. And the other thing I said today on the morning show was he needs to fix it. It's a mess right now. It's got people talking about Ballard years and all of that in the 80s. And no, Brendan, you're the president. The buck stops with you. You have to fix this now. And apparently he'll get his opportunity when he hires whoever he hires.
I just can't imagine a world, Kip, though, where you're like, okay, Brad Tree Living, you're our guy. This is Sandra. She's your secretary. This is, whoever. Trade Mitch Marner. You got 30 days. You don't even know where your office is. My point here is that the things you may have wanted to do to the physical roster, you already hear them saying, Shanahan talked to the team. Now it may be more likely that all 4 of the core members come back and maybe they trade them later. I mean, those guys have no trade clauses. So all of a sudden they'll have leverage. The teams you're trading with will have leverage. You put your team in a worse spot.
Yeah, no question about that.
Yeah.
And it's not who's at fault more and who it's
Both
not. It doesn't matter. You hit it right on the nail at the beginning of the show where you say, hey guys, there's blood on both hands here.
Yeah. And listen, I get the Kyle stuff too. It was very strange to me. The more I thought about it, to go up there in that press conference, unless he's trying to kind of haggle, which I know you talked about, using that press conference as a bit of negotiating, doing the whole, I don't know if I want to be here. I don't know. Maybe if the pot's sweet enough. And I get the idea here where it's like, yeah, but does it need to be perfect to be the president of the GM of the Leafs at age 37 after not making it past the second round? Like maybe it can be not perfect for a bit more.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely.
Like, so he's trying to create this extra leverage.
Yep.
Which, obviously blew up in his face. And so, it kind of reminds me of like a divorce where both people are like, I want 55-45. And instead of doing that, they end up giving a third to the lawyers, going to court. No one gets what they want. It's a mess. It's no leadership here.
It's just, again, it's not uncommon for someone to leave at the end of his contract, i.e. a player, in this case, a general manager. It just didn't need to play out like this so publicly.
No.
And again, if Brendan Shanahan was this controlling, then Kyle doesn't even get the opportunity to go up on the podium on Monday. Like Brendan told him, don't go up.
Wait till we got answers.
Don't go up. No. I'm going up. Like, could your boss or my boss stop us from doing something here?
Yeah.
But Brendan didn't stop. He didn't stop Kyle from going up.
Right.
Kyle said, I'm not taking your advice, Brendan, even though you're my president and I answer to you. I'm not taking your advice. So all of a sudden, all these stories come out about being this control freak and not allowing him to do stuff and trades. And I'm like, was there really a lot of evidence of that with some of the moves that he made?
I mean, this trade deadline, you yourself said several times, it looked more like Brendan than Kyle.
Yeah. No question about that. But, maybe he saw the light this time around that he can't win with the playoffs. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we're when you got 2 hours, as you know, we throw stuff out there.
Yes, we do.
But, Brendan Shanahan and the late Brian Marchment were buddies. He traded his son from Malgin. That doesn't have Brendan's fingerprints all over it. He had freedom to go get Matt Murray.
It felt like the freedom was getting taken away.
Well, half the roster was Sioux Greyhounds for a little while there. It seems like he had a bit of freedom.
Right. Which, if you're starting to lose that freedom, you're starting to take it away from the GM. The second, to me, you're saying, I need to, vet my GM's decision-making, you might need a new GM. And that might be time for the definitive decision to have been made earlier.
I think regardless of how we got here, in terms of this week and the weirdness and everything that he laid out in his press conference and Brendan laid out in his press conference, I don't think this is a bad result. They have not gotten what they should have gotten for over 5 seasons now with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Regardless, maybe there's no plan. Maybe there's panic time in terms of getting these guys signed or traded or whatever. But to me, this was a long enough time seeing somebody's plan to not have any results for there to be a new person running the team. I don't think, I know what everyone's worries are, and I know that looking ahead, the unknown seems scary, but I don't feel like it's not merited for him to be gone regardless of how it happened.
I don't think anyone's making that case.
No, I am making that case. I'm making that case because the decision was made from a weakness, not a strength. And that affects me about where this thing's headed.
It is, the Leaf season ended May 12th. I think it's the 23rd today or something like that. They're doing interviews still for this position with a very tight timeline, like this Austin Matthews deal and the no trade clauses. You know, I know Brendan said he's not going to rush things, but you kind of got to rush things. So your point, Sammy, if he fires him on May 13th with a plan, it makes sense.
Well, that tells you everything you need to know on how surprised he was. He thought he had his general manager at the beginning of the week.
And if you are that sure that you think that, you better be right.
That's a very valid point. But we'll see where it lies ahead. Now, Kyle Dubas did release a statement for the first time since being let go. Sammy, you want to read it?
Sure. Let's see how this goes. While I understand there is interest surrounding the circumstances of my departure, I will not get into the specifics of what I consider to be reasonable and consistent but private discussions. In the days that I felt needed to assess and evaluate my own view to the future, both with my respect to the necessary direction of the club and ensuring that I had the full support of my family for what I knew would be required in the offseason and the years to follow, the organization, as is their right to do, decided to go in a different direction. In the 9 seasons since being afforded the opportunity to work in the National Hockey League for the Toronto Maple Leafs, we have had the chance to learn a lot and have grown significantly through the ups and downs. We have watched our family double in size while developing meaningful relationships which will last a lifetime. It was an honor to be able to work in such an inspiring place with dedicated, loyal people and an extremely passionate fan base. The impact of that and the relationships with all the people at MLSE, from the board of directors through the ushers at Scotiabank Arena, will forever hold a dear place in our hearts. To the players, coaches, and staff at the facility each day, past and present, thank you for your passion and commitment at every step of the journey together. It was a tremendous pleasure to work alongside you each day. We will roll from here, the Dubas family.
Now, when he signed the Dubas family, did he dip his kid's hand in paint and put a handprint on it?
Jeez.
I used to do that all the time.
Yes,
for my
signed by Theo.
Parents. And, you know, anytime I...
Sometimes we'll draw a little paw for Lewis when I'm signing a card.
Clearly, first of all, my first thought is this is a good move by Kyle.
You got to say something.
Well, no. He's saying something without saying something.
Took the high
saying
road.
something.
Took the high road.
Well, not really.
Kind of.
No.
Higher.
Higher is, I don't want to go into more detail that could maybe paint me in a further corner than I already am. That's what I also see. What I do see here is just one last shot of giving Brendan a nice parting gift of that. I'm not airing private discussions like you did on Friday. That's what I see.
You know what part stands out to me is, you know, him kind of framing it as, I was just taking the time. You know, they're allowed to offer me a contract when they like. I was just, during the window in which I was taking my time to make a decision, they changed their mind. You know, the way that it's kind of being framed as like, he was just taking his time before putting pen to paper, and then they flipped on
I
him.
heard Monday a guy that had doubts about being a Toronto Maple Leaf general manager on Monday. That's what I heard. That you lost faith in leading our hockey club.
Yeah.
And once you throw that out there ain't going back.
You know, it's funny. Like, do you truly believe that he went into that press conference knowing he was going to talk about some uncertainty about returning purely for a leverage standpoint? Or do you think it was, I don't want to call it immaturity or whatever, but just a guy who went up there to talk about his situation and just couldn't help but tell the truth about his family situation?
I haven't got a clue. I don't know the man well enough to answer that. But it sounded like whatever issues that he had with his family got fixed with a new package of terms for Brendan by Thursday.
Yeah, and that's, you know, could be part of Kyle seeing that I'm his only option now this late. Like, suddenly I have leverage. And as you mentioned, overplaying that hand.
That's interesting.
You know, and it's...
surely to God he won't fire me right now before all the stuff is about to happen.
Right. What's he going to do? Do
Fire me?
interviews late in May?
I again, all of this coulda and should have been done behind closed doors. Like,
I would have loved someone to dig in and make a choice.
And everybody talked. We didn't really talk about it, but behind the scenes, we did. Publicly, we didn't talk about. Is there a fractured relationship between Kyle and Brendan? Remember?
Oh yeah, that was a big one.
It was a big
Brendan
one.
seemed to try to make it clear that we've been fine, even if it's not been perfect.
Even Kyle at the beginning of his press conference said that I got to be here by myself. I got to stand on my own 2 feet.
Yeah.
Something of that regards.
Yeah.
In that regard. And that's all you kind of thought it was, is after 6 or 7 years or 9 years in the organization, that Kyle doesn't need Brendan sitting beside him in the press box, or he doesn't need him holding his hand.
Yeah.
So what do you make of all the stuff coming out about everyone in the players and people being unhappy?
Let's. You want to go to the players, or just the one that caught me a little off guard was Jason Spezza.
That he just stepped down immediately?
Immediately. I get that you're a Kyle guy, but no one wants to be someone else's guy. Everybody ultimately wants to stand on their own 2 feet.
Right.
And everything that I heard about Jason Spezza was great.
Yeah. That
he's hardworking. He wants to learn. He loves it. He shares, his experience of being on the ice with still probably 70, 80% of the guys in the league, 90. Like, he was an asset.
Right.
He had no problem going to the Marlies and working his ass off there. And he was starting to really build towards Traverse City for, the rookie games.
Yep.
So there was real movement there. There was real growth there. Why on the first opportunity do you, first of all, just go into that war zone between Kyle and Brendan?
Well, it's clear why to me.
Why don't you step back and let that thing sort out? And if you still want to step back, do it like you're standing on your own 2 feet, that you're not riding Kyle's coattails.
To me, it's a statement. He must have seen some things that Brendan said and did that he just didn't agree with morally. He didn't want to be a part or didn't want to work for someone who was doing or saying the things, whatever it was, that Shanahan was doing, was saying, if you're going to hose Kyle this bad, in his opinion, then I don't want to be here either.
Wow. What could be so bad other than, no, I'm not allowing you to do that?
I don't know.
To me, it's an awful look for Spezza just to leave right away.
Well, I don't know. I truly think that this is.
Well, we don't know what happened,
Right.
But from the outside looking in, it's all we can do. We talk about it every day on the radio. My perception of it is it's a bad look to just immediately leave. You were given a job first year out of the league with the premier franchise in the league, your hometown team, and it's like the one guy, like, don't you want to maybe move up or something?
He's the only one who made a decision. He's the only person with the balls to make a decision.
Yeah.
He said, I don't want to be a part of what's going on here. So see ya. And also,
listen, if you got $90 million in the bank, you can do anything you want.
He's
right,
rich as hell.
I got to believe Brendan Shanahan's doing okay, guys. He didn't make any decisions.
Yeah.
You can,
I just think, hey, you know what else too? There's a team up the road here in Ottawa that could use some management. I don't know if it would be Kyle or Jason with Kyle or Jason whatever, but
you could talk about Pittsburgh. You could talk about Ottawa. There's different ways. And I got to think, like, again, just sitting here going into the following week, I'm like, did Kyle absolutely throw $20+ million US back in their face and not have a plan B?
I kind of think he doesn't have a plan B, but
I think he does have a plan B.
You think so? You do.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And it just points to Pittsburgh for me.
It's a lot easier to say, I'm not going to pop up somewhere when you intend to stay in Toronto, right? Like, that's, I think, was the intent.
Yeah, but I thought that was a lie the second he said it.
Okay. So,
I never took that for gospel for 1 second.
Yeah.
Did you guys?
No.
I don't believe you.
Yeah.
No. I don't know why you would throw that out there.
No, it's,
And
yeah,
it's
to me, it
something
like
that,
implied something more.
Monday was so weird.
It was a weird day. It was a great day, though.
Yeah.
like I just think that every time Kyle says something moving forward, it's like I'm not popping up anywhere else this year or this summer.
Well, the claim he can make is that
For sure,
it fell apart in a way that he didn't anticipate.
He can make any claim he wants.
Right.
But, perhaps you should have thought of that before you uttered those words because people hold you to your word.
Yeah.
So then what about the other people that are apparently upset with this? Well, some of the players apparently, like there's reports coming out that there's a lot of uneasiness.
Well, there should be because they're
Listen,
about to bring in
listen,
someone new and make
listen.
new decisions.
Okay. Watching them in the second round was uneasiness for a lot of people
Yeah, it'd be nice if they
in the
showed
city.
this
So I don't get this. I don't get this. You lost to a team that was 19 points behind you in the standings that you should have mopped up. And you've got uneasiness in the meetings? Really? Who comes up with this stuff? Seriously. People write this?
I guess.
These are reported, Sammy?
Yeah. There's lots of reports out there about it.
This is
This is a joke to
juice
me.
your source season for reporters out there. I heard, and then you mentioned all the names of your pals.
How about the one where apparently Brendan Shanahan called the core four and said that, you're not going anywhere? Is that one out there too?
Not that
Yeah.
you're not going anywhere.
Where?
Was it? Wasn't it that like he let them know?
Well, he said that, you guys will all be back.
Yeah.
I promise. I pinky
Is
swear.
that what's being reported?
Yeah, it's been mentioned.
Okay, again, why would Brendan throw that out there and paint himself into a corner here? Like, does that make any sense at
No,
all?
it doesn't. It doesn't. If that's the case that was said to those guys, and I can't believe it would be. I just can't believe it would have been said to those guys because you're talking about starting over here, starting totally differently. You can't tell those guys are going
All
back.
bets are off.
Yes.
We talked about this prior.
But if Austin
to all of this.
Matthews
Just-
tells them in 3 weeks he doesn't know what he's going to do after the
that's-
season, you got some choices to make.
that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. That didn't just sneak up on you, and that didn't just happen.
But you know
That
who's not been thinking
conversation-
about it? The guy who doesn't work here yet.
We've talked about this for a year, and then every time we did, people would freak out that we're starting crap.
Who's people? Me?
Right?
Listen,
It was me.
we're better
Why are you
prepared
talking
for the
about that?
decision.
You don't know what you're talking about. You're just clickbaiting, and you just want hot takes. And it's like, oh, now everybody's bringing it up.
Yeah.
Okay, like you didn't see it prior to all of this, but now that Kyle's gone, it's a huge concern that Austin may leave
Yeah.
because Kyle's not here. Might be one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life, that a player will only sign if he gets a certain general manager.
Yeah.
It's
You committed to being a
ludicrous.
Leaf or you're not committed to being a Leaf?
Here's the biggest contract in the history of hockey. Oh, it's a different guy offering me this. I think I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
Like, if that's the case, then goodbye
yeah,
anyway.
exactly. You're still getting warm cookies at the end of the meal if it's a different GM. Don't worry.
Like, all of this
But
to
I'm
me
telling
is
you,
moot
we
if
have talked
Matthews
about
signs.
this. We have beat this up in this room far more than the guy who is not yet the GM of the Leafs, has not thought about what to do with these contracts and how to change the core of this team and whatever. So, not great, Bob.
and it's coming not off of MVP season. It's not coming off of 60 goals. It's not coming off of discussions like, hey, who's better, McDavid or Matthews? It's coming off of, how really good is this guy? Is he a leader?
Certainly.
Can you win with this guy?
Certainly Dubas believed it.
You tell me how you can go from a conversation of, can you win with this guy, to the highest paid player in NHL history. Not easy for Brendan, who's been here forever, or the new guy who's coming in to be the general manager. You're telling me he's going to make that decision in 6 weeks?
Yes, I am telling you that.
Yeah, he is.
He's going to make that decision within 6 weeks, and he's going to potentially trade him within 6 weeks. Good luck with that one.
Yeah. Oh, I know. No, it's And someone the one guy who I love as a GM in the NHL, whose name keeps coming up, is Doug Armstrong.
Yeah.
Doug Armstrong, while in the playoff hunt, traded Paul Stastny. While in a playoff hunt, traded Kevin Shattenkirk. One of the years they won the Stanley Cup when they did that. He makes hard decisions, and I know he's under contract till 25, 26.
Oh, is that like a throwaway comment?
Yeah.
That's like,
pretty important.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's likely to come here. I'm saying he's the guy I like.
Careful, because there's a lot of people writing about Doug Armstrong like it's like this close to happening.
Yeah.
And it's just
he's happy with the contract.
like God, he works for another team.
I'm just saying he's the guy I like.
There's an ownership out there.
Yes. He's loyal to Stillman and all them. He's won cup there.
Why would I give up a major asset in my organization to the Leafs to go win their Stanley Cup? And what happens to my season ticket holders and fan base and my players? Take someone that we regard as a leader in our organization, hand them over to the Leafs, and what? And what do we get?
Sounds like that it's a Doug Armstrong out. I have no idea, by the way. But I have read that it would be Doug's choice, that sort of thing. I'm not saying he's coming here. I'm saying of the available candidates,
listen,
Brad Treliving just traded the guy who's going to win a cup for Florida and hasn't made it out of the second round.
If there's
like him too, but
if there's an out there, and Doug was able to go to his ownership group when he extended his contract a few years ago and said, I need something because my dream job is a general manager or lead the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
If there is a possibility that Toronto opens up, will you leave it for me? If that's already done and said, then good on him. And there's an opportunity for Doug Armstrong to come.
Yeah.
But if there is nothing, if I'm an owner, I'm sitting there going, scram, beat it, Toronto.
for sure. If they have the say, then no reason for them to do that. By the way, I do want to clarify that I think Treliving's a good GM, and I know Kachuk forced his hand and yada yada. But
and everybody that's now using that trade as to throw in his face as one that he screwed up was lauding him for what a great job he did when he made it. So
I can't imagine having done a better job with the asset he had to move.
I just see that so much now, where people are like, "Oh,
Huberdeau was a big miss
so far."
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. He can come back and play well and maybe score 100 points, but that one's going to be a hard one to look back on.
I just don't know how you trade one of the guy who's literally a Hart Trophy finalist this year and get better. You know, like I thought he did well in that trade, but that's not his whole 10 years GM or anything.
Kipper, in your opinion, is that the favorite Treliving? Do you have any indication? Anything you heard? Like, which way?
I would think right now, yeah, he'd probably be at the top of the list in terms of someone coming in as early as, I don't know, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. But I don't get the sense that they're going to really rush into this. And then there's, we know that there was a press conference that just happened in Calgary, or it's happening now in Craig Conroy. It just
happened at 2:00.
Listen, I had heard that they pretty much had Craig Conroy all along, but you got to make it look like you're doing your due diligence. You can't go too early and have a knee-jerk reaction. And I think if they were to name Brad Treliving tomorrow,
people would be like, who'd you talk to?
People are going to knock them.
I would.
Yeah, I know you would, and I would probably too. I'm like, come on. Like, listen to people.
Right.
Bring them in.
Someone have any new ideas out there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I do believe that this won't happen, in a few days.
Can I weigh in on something of a grander scale? I think that this whole thing is a learning experience, or an education for me anyway, in the value of experience. I'm not sure that how, Kyle learned on the job, right? I think you yourself, Kip, have said he did better as he went along. A lot of the Malgin stuff and Nick Patan, and that was earlier days. He started looking for sort of a heavier type of player. I know some of the younger, first-time AHL coaches they had. The Marley staff has all been let go. I know that, some of the inexperience showed there. This is a tough place to learn on the job in Toronto for hockey.
He's had like a lifetime,
Kyle,
of real experiences in 9 years.
He's
here
so much more valuable
that
now.
He could take anywhere and say, my 9 years in Toronto is like 20 of yours in Carolina or or Arizona.
And that's why he's
or-
like a top prospect now. He's the most valuable guy available.
Yeah, within reason here,
Yeah.
right? And I think it was just too much too soon for him.
I never would have agreed with you at the time. I can see now some of the things that, would have been,
And he
took some time.
and in a year where you're just finishing your 5th as a general manager, it should have gotten easier, right? He should have gotten calmer. He actually went the other way. We saw a raw emotion out of him. The FUs
You
to
can call
the
it desperation, I think, at that point.
the FUs to the fans really bothered me.
Mhm.
If I'm Brendan Shanahan or if I'm on the board, like I'm going, that's our guy, that's our leader. The guys on the ice know who their opponents are. Can someone explain to Kyle Dubas that fan isn't our opponent?
Yeah.
Why are you wasting your energy and your time on that? That's not it. Throwing water bottles is not it. Looking unhinged on your press conference on Monday isn't it. He was going in the wrong direction for me.
Yeah. And you know what else, Kip, is I think he prioritized in his hiring around him, like diversity, it was encouraged. He did a great job. And the Maple Leafs under his tenure, I think, did a great job at encouraging diversity within the organization, everything. But he didn't surround himself with diversity of thought. All the people around him think hockey should be played like him, whether it's Spezza or it's Daryl Metcalf or Pridham. All those guys want it to be played the way Kyle wants hockey to be played.
Okay, there's a term for that. They're called yes men.
Sure. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm going. I think he'd have done well having someone beside him who really feels differently about the way the game is played and should be played. And I don't know that he did that.
I don't know if Brendan did that.
Sure, great point.
He had one in Mark Hunter.
Yeah, and I think you need people to disagree in the office and say, here's why you're wrong about that. Here's why.
I don't think they wanted those guys around.
Well, by the end, they didn't have them around. So that's your answer.
Boys, we only get to talk for an hour, so we should probably go here.
Okay. You got anything for us?
We got to do it. We'll do it after the break.
Okay.
Playoff picks coming up.
Perfect. Real Kyper and Bourne after these words.
is Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
The Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. Summer edition.
Yeah.
1 hour. 2 to 3 Eastern. And like that first 40 just flew by.
I can't believe that.
Before we get to playoff picks, you feel any differently about the Leafs after what Bobrovsky's doing to the Carolina Hurricanes? Because I'm seeing a ton of that from more Dubas-leaning Leaf fans.
Look at
and it changes nothing for me, by the way.
look how like Carolina can't score. We thought the Leafs couldn't score.
Yeah.
Carolina is can't score.
Bobrovsky looks unbelievable. He's dropping his stick to make blocker saves.
He's not making the amount of 10 bell saves he was making against the Leafs against Carolina. He's made a couple really good ones, but I think the Leafs had better quality chances against him than Carolina has.
Overtime started, I think he's like stopped 101 out of 102 or 100 out of 101, something ridiculous.
Yeah,
The Cats are also 6-0 in OT, which is not hurting.
They're 10-1 in their last 11 games.
Yeah. Well, I saw an article today, with all due respect to Mark Lazarus, who I like a lot. It was like, the Cats are doing it differently. They're doing it by having fun. I was like, no, they keep winning.
Yeah, they win every game.
3-0, and
yeah.
they just
Guess what's really fun? Winning every game.
They can't do anything wrong.
No, I know. It just works. And so, Sam, every year has the team who beat the Leafs not gone on to great things?
Well, yeah, but it's like, I would be I'd be ready to listen to this if it wasn't for them getting quote-unquote goalied in all these other series. Maybe,
right.
Look yourself in the mirror. Price.
Last year,
Vasilevsky.
Tampa goes to the final. Year before, Montreal went to the final.
Again,
okay.
I've used this. Like, just switch the goalie. Okay. As much as we crap all over sometimes the Leafs roster, I'm like, can you win with Kerfoot? Just
Is that my impression?
Just switch the goalies.
Yeah.
Give the Leafs Bobrovsky and give them anything they want.
Well, you better hope this other kid's a Wall of Famer, because he's going to be their goalie next year.
Right. Can we talk about that just briefly?
Yes,
quick.
Please. Let's.
Quick.
Like, cool the Jets on Joseph Wall being your number one goalie. Can you just bring him along and give him 30 games to see where it goes?
Have you been to Toronto?
Yeah. No.
It's just come on. It's just crazy talk. The guy, they stick him back in not junior with the Marlies and he gets lit up in the last game. They got knocked out 8-4 or something.
Did he?
Yeah.
Gave up a quick TD.
Okay. So come on. Like, don't throw this guy into the wolves, please.
It's going to be Sammy and him all over.
All right. It's time for playoff picks presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds. We haven't talked about this in a while, so I thought I would check in on the Conn Smythe favorites. And I have to say that I am sick to my stomach looking at what Bobrovsky is now.
Oh, boy.
He's obviously the big-time favorite now, plus 225.
Oh.
Remember when we talked about it?
No.
We talked about it during the Leafs series. And
Was it
like,
giant?
It was like 40.
Yeah. Yeesh.
A little bit of a whoopsie there. So this next one, I have to ask you this. I can't believe they posted this on Bet365. It's an incredible bet to make. You can now bet on the Stanley Cup handoff.
Oh, can you?
So who the cup is going to get handed off to? Who do you think the favorite is?
What's stopping?
I don't know. Kipper.
What's stopping like players from getting their buddies to lay bets and then just setting it up themselves?
Yeah, it's a fair question.
So who do you think the favorite is?
I think the favorite has got to be, since the Panthers are most likely to win it. Who's the oldest guy in the Panthers? Is it like Ekblad or something? Who's the captain there? Barkov to
captain.
Barkov to Ekblad.
No, it's Bobrovsky's the favorite.
Of course,
plus 300. And the next one is Jonathan Marchessault, which is an interesting one because I guess that he's been there the longest, that he's an original member of the Golden Knights, and he's been through a lot. So he was the next favorite.
What kind of odds could I get?
Not Carlton.
Just went to the mascot.
I think the interesting one here is, I guess, William Karlsson at 12-1, who's a guy that's been there forever, might be a little bit of a decent value for you, and Eric Stahl, who's 20-1.
Oh,
and that's an interesting one too.
Probably, yeah.
Because he's been there forever, and
Yeah.
So there you go. Thought that was something a little bit unique for you guys.
So my Jacob Slavin pick not looking real good.
He's not on here right now. Old Slavesy.
They've only given up 2 goals a game.
I know. And Freddie. Can't blame Freddie.
No.
Sammy.
Florida can't score either.
Can't blame Freddie.
Should have had that one on Reinhardt. It was a good, should have had it. No, I can't blame him. He's been excellent. All right. Couple more things quickly before we go. You can bet on when the series will end, obviously. I was looking at the Carolina and Florida series. It's hard to bet against the sweep right now, the way that Bobrovsky's playing, but it's obviously a massive favorite, minus 115 for it to end in a sweep. But if you think the Canes can find a way to make it a series, maybe win a couple games, it's plus 500 for the series to end in 6 games. So maybe they win a couple, maybe win on home ice, go back and, so that's how that could go. Anyways, the last thing, same game parlay for tonight. Stars Knights, if you think the Stars get back into the series, a Stars win with a Rupe Hintz goal pays plus 260.
See, I would take that.
And that's playoff picks presented
Dallas is
by
winning tonight.
Bet365.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Dallas winning tonight. Rupe's the guy. It's crazy. The Florida Panthers, they have 10 wins in 11 games. Every single game but one has been a 1-goal win. So, sorry, one of them was an empty netter. So, it was technically a 2-goal. But then there's another game they won by 2.
To me, this
all
is the
1-goal wins.
Rupe Hintz is the ultimate example of guy playing in a weird hockey market. If Rupe Hintz played in Montreal, he'd be on every CCM billboard.
Yeah.
Rupe
Hintz
Hintz
Toronto
is
here.
amazing.
He's a mule.
Big,
He is
fast,
such a great player.
scores. Yeah.
Like, he's probably my favorite guy left to watch. I love Rupe Hintz. And he's got one of the best handles in the league. Rupe.
Yeah, I'd like to see Dallas come back and make a series of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've been getting good games, right? At least we're getting overtimes out of it.
What'd you think of Kachuk Selly leaving the rink right
I
away?
love it. That's
Me
my
too.
favorite sell you can do.
Absolutely love it.
We're not going to stay here and make a scene. Right to the room.
See you later, guys.
Hey, our thanks to nobody. No guests today.
Yeah.
Just
Who to
us.
thank?
My
Absolutely nobody.
Best show
All
I've
right,
booked
we're
all
back
year.
tomorrow. Real Kyper and Bourne. Enjoy your night, everybody.